Hey guys, Dee here. Welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, I wanted to go over the similarities and the differences between chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia. So let's start with the similarities because there's a lot of them. The first being that both conditions are what's called a dysautonomia. So what that means is basically there's an issue with the part of the brain, not psychiatry wise. I mean, like neurologically, like the organ in the brain. There's an issue with the part of it that controls all of the stuff that we do that's just like automatic. So like our heart beats automatically. We don't tell it, okay, we're going to beat this fast today. No, we're going to beat this fast tomorrow. Same with things like blood pressure, breathing when you're not paying attention to it, things like that we just automatically do without our like conscious control. There's an issue with that part of the brain. So either it's too active or it could be not active enough, depending on the symptoms that you have. Many of us, it's the overactive aspect of things. So both of them have those as the cause. And then while you can have like psychiatric symptoms, because let's just be real, if you were in pain all the time, I think that would impact your mood a little bit, maybe a little bit, might make you anxious just a little bit, I'm just saying, like they're symptoms, but they're not the cause. Another thing with both of these conditions is that they have flares and they also have triggers. So, for example, if you're stressed, stress can throw you into a trigger. Certain foods, if your body is just like, nope, I'm not feeling it, like it has an intolerance to it, doesn't have to be an allergy even, then it could throw you into a flare. Being sick can throw you into a flare. There's so many different things that can put you in a flare. And another thing too is just like people with like autoimmune conditions, you don't know when that flare is going to hit. There's an unpredictability part of that. So you can make plans and be like, yeah, I'm going to go and do this. And then your body tells you that you are only going to be able to lay in bed today and breathe. And that's it. That's all the energy you have. So it makes it very hard in that aspect to function and make plans, which makes it very stressful. Another thing in common that they both have is they share the same symptoms, actually. You can have fatigue and fibromyalgia, and you can also have chronic pain and chronic fatigue syndrome. It's really kind of confusing. I'm going to do a screen share real quick, and I want to show you guys the fibromyalgia diagnostic tool. I did a video already going through it in depth, so I'm not going through the whole thing, but I do want to show you guys just how many symptoms both conditions can have. Even though this says fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome has the same symptoms. So let's see. All righty. So right here, this is page 2. All of these symptoms here, from muscle pain to muscle weakness, headache, dizziness, insomnia, heartburn, dry eyes, all of this stuff you can have in either fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue syndrome. And see, one of the reasons that they both in common are hard to diagnose is if you look at these symptoms, most of these symptoms could just be a problem by itself. So a lot of times what happens is, the person might come in because they're having dry eyes. And so the doc's like, or the NP or PA is like, okay, let's treat the dry eyes. And then maybe a few months later, you start having some headaches. And then maybe later on, you might also be having some depression. And then what happens is instead of the main cause being treated, they're just treating individual symptoms, not realizing that everything is connected. Because, when you have dry eyes, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have a chronic condition. It could be an autoimmune issue. It could be fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue. It could be you just happen to have dry eyes. It could be allergies. There's so many different causes. And when it comes to getting diagnosed with any sort of chronic disease, you have to have the issue for a period of time. You can't just have the issue for like a couple of days and expect someone to go and give you a disease diagnosis, because that's more acute. Okay. And if the provider's thinking acute, they're going to go the injury, temporary thing route versus the chronic, okay, we need to treat a disease process. You know what I'm saying? And then a lot of people also run into, well, it's only been a few days, or it's only been a week, or it's only been a couple of weeks. Well, come back and check back in another month or another 2 weeks and see how things go. You know what I'm saying? Chronic illness, usually, depending on the doctor and the place, it usually has to be like going on for at least 6 weeks. If it's been going on for months, automatically chronic. But you got to make sure you tell your doctor or your nurse practitioner or your physician assistant, you have to tell them it's been going on for however many months. Even if it's on and off, even if you're not feeling the headache every day. If it's starting to be more frequent and it's been more frequent for the past couple months, that's still chronic. And if you think you got something going on that's chronic, you have to you got to really describe, I think this is chronic. It's been going on for this much, or it's becoming more frequent, or it's becoming more intense. Trends and patterns is what signal a lot of medical professionals to be like, ding, ding, ding. Oh, something else might be going on. This isn't just a temporary thing. But I digress. That's how many symptoms they share. And so both actually are treated very similarly because they are a dysautonomia. So that's why with those pains, you might find that certain pain pills don't work on it, because the different types of pain are caused by different pathways in the brain and different nerves and things like that, which is why some pain pills work for certain types of pain better than others. And the problem with some of these things is say you're having chest pain. If the chest pain is being caused by a heart attack, give them some nitroglycerin and that might help with that. But if it's coming from fibromyalgia, that may not help because it's a totally different cause. That's heart versus brain. You know what I'm saying? Or same with arthritis pain versus a headache, autoimmune arthritis versus the wear and tear arthritis. They all are caused by different stuff. So different pain meds work. And that's why you see more medications for chronic fatigue syndrome and for fibromyalgia. You see more meds to calm the brain down, because many times it's due to an overactive brain, and that brain just never gets rest. So think about it like you got a car with a bad car engine. It's totally out of oil and it has no gas, and you are trying to drive that thing. Okay, well, we might be able to put in a little bit of gas here and there, but that gas is diluted and it still doesn't solve the issue of we need to change the oil, and it doesn't change the issue that the transmission in the engine is bad. So we need to go, because it hasn't had a chance to calm down and it's overheated. So we need to calm it down. If we can calm it down, we might be able to get a little bit of relief here. So that's why you end up seeing more antidepressants. That's why you see things for nerve pain. If nerve pain is some of your symptoms, so you'll see Lyrica or gabapentin, things like that. Or you'll also see anti-anxiety meds. These meds are not for psychiatric purposes in that the condition is caused by psychiatric reasons. It's more of it helps calm the brain itself down. And the more worked up and your brain gets, like the worse things start to feel. And the problem with both chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia is that you are operating on a diluted gas tank, is how I explain it to people. So the average person who doesn't have either of these issues, okay, like no autoimmune, no fibromyalgia, no nothing, their gas tank is like a regular car. So let's just say for illustrative purposes, they can go through the entire day, they can get up, do their chores, go to work or school, come back, take care of their kids, their cats, their dog, go and plan, they can go and, be very functional, and say that one day of just doing a basic 9-to-5 job or something like that and taking care of your family, say that brings an average person down to maybe a quarter tank or half a tank of gas as far as how much gas is used up. If you have fibromyalgia or you have chronic fatigue syndrome, you don't even have to do half of that stuff before you're at the E in your gas tank. And the way that it's set, because it's a dysautonomia thing, some symptoms will not improve until you get rest. Like for me, because I've been diagnosed with fibromyalgia, I would get migraines if I stayed awake too long. And they'd be like the severe ones. I tried Tylenol, I tried Aleve, I tried ibuprofen. We tried all these different things. None of them touched my migraine. And if I did not get rest, I started to have aura, and I would have visual auras type of thing, which tend to be more higher risk than just having the migraine itself without the aura. And it would just be a mess. I could be up for a couple of hours and then I would need rest. The only thing that would make that migraine go away, the only thing that would make some of my muscle pains and some of my nerve pains go away was rest. And it was to the point where like I was so drained with the battery charge that like, even if I just laid my head down for 10 minutes, I was able to function better. Not for very long, but I could function a little bit better. I could put up a good front for like 5 minutes. That is so, that's so stressful. So anyway, I'm going to get out of the screen share and I'm going to go into the differences, or I should say difference, because there's really only like one difference between the two. So let me switch back. Okay. So difference between chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia. Actually, the only difference that I could find was that the dominating symptom is different. So I had asked one of my coworkers when I was working as a nurse in rheumatology, I'm like, what's the difference between the two? Because when I looked up chronic fatigue syndrome, I'm like, this sounds like fibromyalgia. What's the difference? And that coworker told me, basically with chronic fatigue syndrome, fatigue is the bigger issue for the person. And with fibromyalgia, pain is the bigger issue for the person. Yeah. And when I went to go and do more research, like on Cleveland Clinic's website, it was basically the same thing. So it's interesting because it actually suggests that there are people who have been diagnosed with fibromyalgia that actually might have chronic fatigue syndrome. That is a question and a conversation you have with your doctor, okay? I'm not saying you were misdiagnosed. It's just that there's so much misinformation out there and a lot of like confusing stuff about fibromyalgia that even in the medical community, there's a lot of misunderstandings about fibromyalgia and what it is. And research has just recently started to come out to really like give more hardcore evidence that this is a neurological issue, not a like rheumatic in the sense that it's an autoimmune condition or that it is a psychiatric condition. You know what I'm saying? Like research is starting to come out. And what researchers, from what I have read, And this is as of March. What is today? March 2021. Okay, we'll go with that. Okay, brain fog is in both too, by the way. Yeah. Is that researchers are actually starting to suspect that chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia might actually just be the same disease process, but different subtypes. So kind of like how like arthritis is a disease process, but there's way more than one different types of arthritis. You know what I'm saying? There's the rheumatoid arthritis subtype, osteoarthritis subtype, inflammatory arthritis subtype, psoriatic arthritis subtype, juvenile idiopathic arthritis subtype, and there are 6 subtypes within that subtype. You know, you can have arthritis with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome. You know, there are so many different types of arthritises, but arthritis itself is like the main bubble. Researchers are starting to think that there's one main bubble and that chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia are just different types of that same bubble, if that makes sense. So I'm really interested to see where the research starts to go for fibromyalgia and for chronic fatigue syndrome, because I see as the more that they learn and the more that they're starting to even see, like, even in scans, like brain scans, they're starting to see differences and stuff. I'm really excited to see what treatments start to come out. So that way people with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome can have a much easier way of living. Similar to how when biologics first came out for all of us like autoimmune people, and, you know, for a good chunk of us with autoimmune stuff, it's been like a game changer for people. Now, granted, you do not have to have those sort of things to enjoy your life with chronic fatigue syndrome or fibromyalgia. Okay. One of the things that I work with people on in my coaching programs is how to be able to basically take your life back from all these different conditions and be happy and fulfilled with it. So if pain is your biggest issue, we can get your life back from that. If it's fatigue, we can get your life back from that. You know, I have fibromyalgia and rheumatoid arthritis. So those are the 2 that I have the most specialty in. But if this one-on-one support is something that you are interested in doing, then definitely go, and you can find me on Facebook. I will have my Facebook link in the description box. And then I'll also have like a calendar link for you to schedule something. If something does not work for you time-wise and you're still interested in getting a game plan together with me on a free little mini coaching session, then definitely go onto my Facebook and just send me a private message and we will get something figured out. So with that said, I hope that you find this helpful. I definitely learned a lot when I worked in rheumatology as far as like the similarities and differences with these. And with that, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.